Must this all end in violence?
Yes.
I cried.
That's the scope of this movie, Darth Vader.
It starts robbing banks.
Toto, I've got a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Doughnut Revenge.
Here's looking at you, Doughnut.
Yes. Welcome to the Doughnut Revenge Podcast. I'm Jeremy Lynch.
And I'm Lauren DeVries.
We are here today to review The Lion King, but first, it's Comic-Con, and we got a lot of exciting stuff going on, so where do we begin? Well, it was yesterday when the Russo brothers announced their work on Sherry.
Yep.
And that's going to be a bit of a turn for them, don't you think?
I do. Based on a true story about a Iraq war veteran who gets PTSD and starts abusing opioids and starts robbing banks.
Yes, it's going to be a tender love story.
And it's got Tom Holland in it, so we'll all be happy about that.
Yes, you got to love Tom Holland. Do you think they've given him a script yet?
Probably not. Probably won't get a script until he's actually on set.
So I'm definitely interested to hear more about this movie as they announce more of it. But moving on, actually, it was just today that the CW announced at Comic-Con that they're going to be doing a series soloing Batwoman.
Always good. Batwoman is a classic.
Yes, and this is actually, unless you count the Lego movie, which I do, the first time that Batwoman has really been in film or television since, I don't know, Batman and Robin.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Like, definitely a different take on the character. This one's not even Barbara Gordon. This is Kate Kane.
I know. Barbara Gordon.
You gotta have Barbara. Okay, I'm gonna overlook that and give it a chance. It's gonna be, it looks like it's gonna focus more on social justice issues,
Which is great. I'm all about social justice, especially in these trying times.
so it's gonna focus on social justice issues, and they're gonna take a particularly brave leap here and make the protagonist an out of the closet lesbian. So she's connected to those social justice issues. So it's definitely
She's got skin in the game.
Okay, so be on the lookout for that, and I'm definitely going to be paying attention to these stories coming up out of Comic-Con as we speak. But people aren't here to listen to us ramble about Comic-Con today, are they, Lauren?
No. They are here to listen to us talk about The Lion King.
The Lion King!
Oh, The Lion King.
Man, I remember the first time I saw The Lion King.
Tell me.
I was, 1994? So I was 5 years old, and it was the first movie my parents ever took me to in the theater. And by the way, I'm a filmmaker, and that's my chosen career. Whether it's my
Your moneymaker?
whether it's my moneymaker or not has yet to be seen. But it's my chosen career. I have a film on Amazon, but. It's hard to say that The Lion King did not inspire me. It was the first movie I saw on the big screen, and I just remember it being huge. That opening sequence with with all the animals running around and bowing at Pride Rock, and the monkey holding the baby
swelling
Simba.
Swahili.
Oh yes, the music was just off the charts, and it ends with that big boom, and then the next thing you see is this tiny little mouse. Just like, that's the scope of this movie. The really big and the really small and everything in between. And how about you, Lauren? Because I know you have some interesting experiences with this movie.
I will already say about this new Lion King, I cried. We'll get it out here, right here in the beginning, that I'm a crier. I am an emotional person, and you can tell when I'm emotional. I'm like the gasping crier, so you can definitely hear me in the theater.
You cried
crying.
You cried during the original movie, right?
I did cry during the original movie. In fact, my mom had a rule, which was that if I cried during the beginning of the movie, like the opening setup, then she wouldn't let me watch the rest of the movie until I could get through it. I don't know how many times I watched the beginning to the DreamWorks
Prince of Egypt,
and I just could not get past the first beginning climactic scene, And I'm just really glad that my mom wasn't in charge of my movie preferences and watching habits when Up came out, because I don't know how long it would have taken me. I probably still wouldn't know the ending to Up, you know? And Lion King is
How far did you get in before your mom stopped you?
You know, I think I was an emotional child, so I'm pretty sure that on that first, like, confrontation with Scar and Mufasa, I was like, oh man, this isn't going to bode well. Like, even as a child, I was like, not going to bode well. I didn't even know the story of Hamlet. Like, I didn't have any frame of reference. I just was like, oh no.
Hamlet, that's a remake of The Lion King, right?
Yes, obviously. William Shakespeare, who?
Yes, he's copying all of Disney's ideas. But okay, you had to know this was coming. I mean, first of all, if you saw The Jungle Book in 2017, which I did, I don't remember if it was when I saw the trailer or when I saw the movie, but there's this...
But it was very apparent in the beginning.
There's a distinct point in the movie where the tiger is walking on top of a rock and he's silhouetted by the sun, and you can't see him because of the sun being so bright, but he's on top of a rock looking out over all the other animals. And I was just like, nice little tease there, Jon Favreau. Like, I see what you're doing here. Lion King's coming next. And I just gotta say, this movie lived up to the hype.
It really did. I had some concerns, but they have been put to bed.
I've spent the last 2 years being concerned, going, oh, don't make this movie. Please don't make this movie. And then I saw that they made the movie, and I saw the trailer. I was like, oh, please make this movie. Please make this movie. And for me, like, my experience with The Lion King, because I watched it, like, at least once a week for, like, from the age of 5 to, like, 15. Yes, when I was 15.
We were all watching Disney movies when we were 15. It's okay.
But I remember, like, just watching this movie over and over again and trying to imagine what it would look like if the animals were real and not animated. And yes, they're computer generated. It's technology. It's VR, which we'll get into in a second here. But boy, did it look real.
There were points in the beginning of the movie where I had to remind myself that I was not watching Planet Earth. I half expected David Attenborough to come around and to be, like, setting up the scene of, like, and here we see the conflict of two alpha males vying for position.
And this
like, I was expecting it. I was ready.
Oh man, David Attenborough. I would agree. I was sitting there wondering how many times Jon Favreau had watched Planet Earth before making this movie.
And Nat Geo and, like, all of those, like, nature documentaries. It was just really realistic.
So this is actually a stretch. I know it doesn't seem like it because, you know, we've had Avatar and we've had Jungle Book, but this is a movie that's taken the same technology from those movies and taken it to a new level, because as I'm sure our listeners are well aware, nothing in this movie was actually physically there. You know, the landscapes, the animals, nothing was actually there. And what they did and what I loved, they didn't just sit down at a computer and just computer generate all of this stuff. You know, it wasn't like a Pixar film. They actually, you know, got out in this really big warehouse, right, and set up their cameras and stuff in a place where there was no props or actors, and they
just space.
Yeah, and they put on their VR goggles, and all of a sudden this warehouse is the Pride Lands, and they can travel anywhere in the Pride Lands physically with their VR goggles. And they have physical cameras with, like, real cinema lenses and everything like that, and sensors in the cameras so that the computer knows where the camera's pointing, what its focal length is, and all that great stuff. And that's how they made this movie. They made it as close to the physical process of making a movie as they could, even though it was a completely digital movie.
Yeah. Have you ever done VR?
I have not, but I look forward to doing it in my future.
I did VR once, and it was in a friend's apartment, and it was a studio apartment, so like a one-bedroom, everything kind of all in the same space. And I kept running into his stove. I kept bumping into the stove with the VR stuff. And, you know, he didn't give me any warnings about where I was going, but VR is pretty cool. And I honestly, will go out and buy my own VR set if they release, like, the Pride Lands. I just want to go explore the Pride Lands.
Watch, the Oasis is real and it's coming.
It is.
For those Ready Player One fans out there. Okay, gotta talk about the casting here.
Yes. The first thing that you notice about the casting choices is the familiar voice, the comforting voice of Mufasa. That James Earl Jones is back, and I love James Earl Jones. I'm so happy that he was able to come back.
Well, yeah, who else were they gonna get to play Mufasa?
Who else were they gonna get that would live up?
I mean, they don't even get anybody else to play Darth Vader.
No.
I mean,
there's certain people you just don't recast.
No, I mean, it makes me wonder what would happen if he died before they made this movie.
They could just have used all the lines from the old movie. Just pull them right out.
And it would have worked. They did give him, to be fair, they did give him some new lines in this movie.
They did. This is true. The dialogue is not all word for word from the 94 version.
Other casting choices that I thought were interesting was that everyone in the royal family in this movie is black. And I think that's cool because for the first time, well, I guess it's really the second time that they've made this movie, unless you count the sequels. But for the first time ever, the royal family of the Pride Lands are all the same race, which even as a kid in the 90s when you know, you usually had black people or white people voicing black people and it wasn't that uncommon.
I mean, Jeremy Irons is great. We don't hate Jeremy Irons.
I love it. I love Jeremy Irons. He will always be Scar to me. But this guy actually sounded like Mufasa's brother. I was like, hey, these guys could actually be related. Mm-hmm. You know, so I felt that was a nice touch. I really, because that always bothered me growing up. I was like, but they don't look the same. How are they related? I mean, right. Even though it was a cartoon and you didn't see the actors.
Yeah. And then, of course, everyone has been talking about Beyonce.
Whoa,
Beyonce is in Lion King.
No, that's just, everybody's been concerned. There have been, if you are on the internet, there have been some concerns that have been voiced regarding whether or not The Lion King is going to turn into the Beyonce movie.
Well, we are happy to report that you will be happy either way.
Well, first of all, Beyonce is definitely in this movie.
Beyonce is definitely in this movie.
And she brings the character to life. But they don't really overplay her. They don't, like, make any of her songs extra long so she can get that Beyonce star moment. No. They don't give her, like, a ton of extra lines. She doesn't outshine any of the other characters.
This is not the Beyonce movie.
No, it's definitely still The Lion King. But Nala has the voice of Beyonce.
It's awesome.
Also, they, you know, this is our non-spoiler review. So if you want the spoilers, we'll go into that in the next episode. Mm-hmm. But they do give her a slightly bigger part. In fact, they spend a lot more time developing all the characters in this movie, which I really appreciate.
We'll go into that in greater detail next time.
Now, this movie... definitely an emotional roller coaster, just like the first one. The whole time I was watching the movie, I kept hearing people in the theater laugh. I even heard people crying out loud. Mm-hmm.
Especially me.
I wasn't gonna point out anybody.
No, it's okay.
I wasn't gonna name names.
I'll own it. It's all right. You can call me out.
I did not cry. I might have had a speck of dust get into my eye, and that you know, but I didn't cry.
All right, sure.
But the movie did pull on the heartstrings, very much like the original. I felt like this was a faithful adaptation.
Yeah, me too.
I felt like not only was it faithful to the core of the original story, but they took artistic liberties to strengthen that core. So
I agree.
Every scene had something new added to it. Mm-hmm.
Little nuances.
Yes.
Or dialogue changes. Mm-hmm. Or what else? Just some unscripted from the last movie.
Yes. Things that weren't in the last movie. But none of it took away from the story or really distracted. I felt like all of it did a good job of building the story and really pulling you into the world. I love Jon Favreau's take on this story, and I love his approach. As soon as I heard that he was the one directing the movie, I was like, okay, they can do this. They have my permission. Not that they needed it, because they're Disney and they're gonna do it anyway. But once I heard that, I was like, okay, Jon Favreau's the man. He can make my childhood a live action movie.
We trust him.
I trust him so much, I'd let him raise my kids.
Speaking of kids, when we just went to go see this movie, there was a great moment where, this is not a spoiler because it's in the original, but there is a moment where Scar says, "Must this all end in violence?" And from behind us, like one, maybe two rows behind us, we hear a little kid go, "Yes." Very clearly, emphatically, like, yes.
It was a yes.
It must be done.
That's how engaged the audience was. I think even though we all knew the story, this movie did a good job of keeping us on the edge of our seat the whole time and feeling emotionally connected to it. And, yes, you got it coming, Scar.
And being on the edge of our seats, especially, I made a joke at the beginning of the movie before, we had started. And we were still, looking at the previews and chatting a little bit.
We were talking about things we might cover in the podcast, specifically in this.
And I made an
episode.
offhanded joke, and I said, we got to tell him about the jump scare at 40 minutes in. And
lo and behold,
there's a jump scare. There's 3 jump scares.
And one of them was at 40 minutes in.
Just about, yeah. And I leaned over to Jeremy and I said, wow, I am amazing. I predicted the jump scare.
Sure you did.
Also, the jump scares were mostly when I started crying, so that was also, an indicator.
So were you crying because you were scared?
No. No, I'm just crying because I'm emotional about everything.
All right, well, that is our non-spoiler review of The Lion King. We are not done with our podcast because Lauren has her Harry Potter thought of the day.
Yes, absolutely. Some context for these Harry Potter thoughts of the day. I will have one every episode. They will not be cohesive at all. They will not go together. They will simply be statements because I will not defend them because that would take a whole entire other podcast. So my Harry Potter thought of the day is Regulus Black was a hero and he deserved better.
R.I.P.
That's right.
So, Lion King. Now, you have a story about a tiger you encountered at the zoo.
Yes.
Tell us what happened, because it sounded like it was a traumatic experience.
It was.
You might have got some PTSD, and you might
like we're gonna experience in cherries.
You might be overusing on some opiates. I'm watching. You don't have to rob a bank. You can talk to me.
Thank you. I actually need a couple $1,000 if you're willing.
Oh yeah, I got that right here.
Perfect. No, so the year is 2002. And I am on a school field trip, and we're at the zoo. It's a good day. The tiger is out in full form, full glory, and we're all crowded around the glass. And the tiger is just pacing up and down in front of the glass, looking not thrilled to be at the zoo like we were. And the tiger...
Well, yeah, because he lives there. This is every day for him.
Yeah, exactly. The tiger's like, what do you mean? I'm just hanging out.
And kids are like, yay, Dad's home. Yeah. The tiger's like, oh, I'm here with Mom.
Yeah, exactly. So the tiger is pacing around the front of the glass, and my friends and I are all tapping on the glass, trying to get him to look at us, and we're going to, see the tiger up close and personal, and he's going to come past us, and we're going to pretend that we're petting him through the glass, because children. But
because that's
the tiger stops in front of me, looks me dead in the eye, and licks its lips. And I kid you not, that is the story that I remember. Every time I go to the zoo, every time I encounter a big cat.
That was the last time you went to the zoo, wasn't it?
No, I've since faced my fears. I'm pretty sure that they can't get out. I'm 80% sure that I am safe at the zoo. So that's my real life parallel to Lion King, is my big cat fear.
All right. Well, for all of you new listeners out there, well, they're all new listeners because this is our first episode.
All of you are new listeners. This is for all of you.
And so we have a special treat that we've decided to put at the end of each episode. And it's something that will continue to grow as we have more episodes and more of a following. Lauren, you want to explain the rules of our little shenanigan here?
Yes. So I went to camp a lot as a kid, and one of our favorite things to do, campfire stories, stories in the dark while you're all in your bunk beds and like trying to fall asleep, but not really, but your counselor's looking at you, so you should go to sleep. A favorite game of ours was we would do one-sentence stories, and these stories took us all over the place. We had one story about the snooty prince of the West, who we had like a Cinderella kind of story, except it got really weird, and I'm pretty sure the prince got like thrown off a balcony or something, because you can just take it a different direction with every sentence, and we'd go back and forth. So Jeremy and I are going to do the same thing and go back and forth for a couple of sentences, just so we're not too slow. A couple of sentences each podcast at the very end, and they'll be strung all along together somewhere where you can read them.
So in each podcast, the story is going to progress.
Yep.
And you have to tune in every time to hear what happens to our unnamed protagonist. So that said, we have to name this thing, don't we?
Yes. Today, the sole purpose of this segment is to create the name. And what better way to name our one-line story than to name it one word at a time until we reach a suitable ending for our name.
All right. I will begin.
Predictable. The fun.
And
The
terrible
life
of
Chester
Dobby
McMillan
Skywalker
in
trying
to
be
the
greatest
chef
of
all
time.
There we go.
You got that? So, we are going to follow the story of... Oh, what's his name again?
Chester Dobby McMillan.
Skywalker.
Oh yeah, McMillan Skywalker. No relation to any other Skywalkers, living or dead.
No. It's a common name.
Yeah. He's got a fun and terrible life as he tries to make it as a chef.
All right, so we have a few minutes left here. Let's give this thing a go. I like how we're kind of like sabotaging each other and like passing the torch.
Yeah.
Like, it's like
That's how it's going to be for the rest of our lives.
This is like hot potatoes. So, would you like to start the first sentence about Chester?
All right. In Arizona, in the dry heat, there lived a boy whose name was Chester Dobby McMillan Skywalker.
Chester had no friends. And when it was his birthday, his parents did not throw him a birthday party.
His only friend was the kitchen stove.
He had a great relationship with the kitchen stove. The two would play all sorts of games. Like, how many times can you fail at frying eggs? It's okay. Breathe. You'll be all right.
Yeah, I got it. Chester and the Stove's favorite game was, how burnt can we make a pancake before we set off the fire alarm? Not based on true experience at all.
No, because no one in this room has ever had that experience.
No, not at all. One more sentence to finish it off. Lead us on a cliffhanger, Jeremy.
One day, Chester's father came home with a giant box that it was a brand new box, and on the label it said kitchen stove.
Dun dun dun!
Tune in next time to see what happens to the kitchen stove.
That's right.
Wait, is it Kenmore or Whirlpool?
I don't know.
Like we didn't get very we need to develop the character of the stove a little.
Oh, I'm sure with you being a filmmaker and me being a writer, we'll get some character development in there somewhere. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
It takes a couple of sentences.
So thank you all for listening to our podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell in order to hear about when our spoiler episode comes out. We will be reviewing The Lion King with spoilers. So for those of you who've seen the movie and want to get a little bit more in depth into the things that are actually there and are freaking out about what you just saw, and you don't have anybody to lead you through it,
We're here.
yes, we're here for you. So
And we'll give you a couple of days so you can get to that point. This has been Doughnut Revenge.
Doughnut Revenge.